The otherworldly mages could never have imagined that the woman they discarded as useless was actually a logistics powerhouse with abilities bordering on divine. While ordinary adventurers struggle through monster-filled wilderness with empty stomachs and nowhere safe to sleep, she can casually summon a fully equipped luxury camper stocked with endless food, water, and electricity. They assumed a woman abandoned alone in the forest would quickly become monster food. Instead, she turns survival into a relaxing camping trip, and all it takes is one grilled fish to recruit a handsome adventurer as her personal bodyguard. Our story follows Takanashi Rin, a woman in her 20s who loves camping, cooking outdoors, and tabletop role-playing games. On what should have been another peaceful trip, Rin sets up camp beside a lake, lights her stove, and casts a fishing line. Her rod suddenly bends so hard that it nearly snaps. Convinced she has caught the biggest fish of her life, Rin pulls with everything she has. Unfortunately, no fish appears. Instead, a white-haired young man with red horns comes flying out of the water. Rin stares in disbelief at the soaking wet stranger she has somehow caught beside her campsite. Catching a handsome man instead of lunch is certainly unexpected, but she still remembers to check whether he is alive. After confirming that he is breathing, she drags him to a safe spot and allows him to rest. Then, with the emergency apparently under control, she returns to the milk salmon skewers, already releasing an irresistible aroma over the grill. The smell of roasted fish is powerful enough to bring the stranger back to consciousness. He wakes just as Rin bites into a perfectly seasoned piece of rich, tender salmon. Noticing the desperate hunger in his eyes, she offers him a skewer without hesitation. At first, the man accepts it with visible embarrassment. After his first bite, however, all restraint disappears. One skewer becomes 2, then 3, while Rin keeps grilling more and pours him barley tea to balance the rich flavor. By the time the meal is over, the man who nearly drowned has made a miraculous recovery, and the empty plates reveal just how long he must have gone without proper food. Once he has recovered enough to speak, the two finally introduce themselves. The man's name is Vil, an adventurer from the town of Elrage. During a solo mission, he removed his clothes and entered a stream, only for a small monster to raid his belongings and eat every piece of food he had packed. His equipment remained untouched, but hunger eventually pushed him into making a reckless decision. He slipped into the river and was swept downstream until he reached Rin's fishing line. Fortunately, his race possesses an unusually durable body, which is the only reason he survived the violent journey without being seriously injured. Even though he owes Rin for saving and feeding him, Vil gently warns her not to trust every stranger she finds in the wilderness. A woman traveling alone should not rescue an unfamiliar man and immediately invite him to dinner without taking any precautions. Rin admits that his advice makes sense, but her survival strategy skill never warned her that Vil was dangerous. More importantly, even while exhausted, he noticed that her clothes were wet and showed concern for her condition. That small act of consideration was enough to convince Rin that he was not someone with malicious intentions. To Vil, the magic he casually demonstrates is nothing unusual. Rin, however, reacts with such overwhelming excitement that she practically jumps into the air. Her enthusiasm makes him realize that she has almost no knowledge of magic. Rin sees no reason to hide the truth and openly admits that she came from another world, one where people cannot casually produce supernatural abilities with a wave of the hand. Rin then asks whether Vil has ever heard of a ritual known as the summoning of a saint. She explains that she had been enjoying an ordinary camping trip when the ground suddenly collapsed beneath her. The next thing she knew, she had been dragged into an unfamiliar ceremonial chamber filled with mysterious robed figures. A high school student had also been summoned alongside her. A blonde noble immediately welcomed the younger girl as the saint, praising her as though she were the answer to every problem in the kingdom. Rin, meanwhile, received nothing except suspicious and disappointed looks. After examining Rin's abilities, the mages declared that her skills were completely useless. Without offering an explanation, compensation, or even basic directions, one of them activated another magic circle and threw her out of the chamber. When Rin regained consciousness, she found herself abandoned beside a lake in the middle of an unfamiliar forest. The summoners had dragged 2 innocent people away from their world, kept the one they wanted, and discarded the other like unwanted luggage. Vil is furious on Rin's behalf, but something else confuses him even more. She was taken away from her home, rejected by strangers, and abandoned in a dangerous wilderness. Most people would be terrified or emotionally shattered, yet Rin appears surprisingly calm. The explanation lies in her survival strategy skill. It automatically helps her body and mind adapt to unfamiliar environments, supplies essential survival knowledge, and warns her whenever danger is nearby. It is an incredibly powerful ability, although there is something almost tragic about a skill that makes being abandoned easier to endure. Thanks to survival strategy, Rin has maintained her emotional stability and constructed a comfortable campsite entirely by herself. Vil's eyes light up as he listens. Any adventurer would desperately want an ability that improves environmental awareness, survival knowledge, and adaptability. Somehow, the summoners looked at one of the most valuable exploration skills imaginable and called it worthless. Rin is about to reveal her second ability when Vil's stomach growls loudly enough to interrupt the conversation. The two agree that explanations can wait. Dinner is now the highest priority. Now that some trust has formed between them, Rin decides to reveal her greatest secret. She walks into an open area and quietly establishes Vil's access permission. A moment later, an enormous luxury camper appears before them. Rin affectionately calls it Mochan. She explains that it functions as both a miniature department store and a mobile hotel, and only people personally authorized by her can touch or enter it. After receiving permission, Vil steps inside and is immediately overwhelmed by the enormous interior. The vehicle contains a dining area, beds, a bathroom, a fully equipped kitchen, and even a refrigerator. Rin explains that Mochan uses something similar to spatial magic, allowing the interior and storage capacity to be far larger than the outside suggests. Food and essential supplies automatically replenish themselves by absorbing mana from the surrounding atmosphere. Clean water is produced through the same process, while waste is broken down and converted back into mana. It is not merely a camper, it is a completely self-sustaining recycling system. Vil can barely understand how the summoners managed to classify such an ability as useless. Mochan is a mobile fortress with enormous storage, permanent shelter, clean water, and an endlessly replenishing food supply. Used properly, Rin could support an entire military division. The only limitation is that Mochan can be summoned only outdoors. Since Rin was examined inside a cramped ritual chamber, the mages probably never saw the true form of the ability they dismissed. While Rin prepares dinner, Vil volunteers to patrol the surrounding area. He returns without any bad news and brings her a massive piece of Almirage loin as a gift. Rin recognizes it as meat from a monster resembling a horned rabbit. Vil offers it as a small repayment for the meal that saved his life earlier that day. Rin happily stores the meat and invites him to sit down for dinner. Dinner consists of steaming risotto and thinly sliced fish carpaccio. The soft rice absorbs the rich flavor of milk, while the fresh fish remains sweet and delicate without any unpleasant smell. Olive oil and herbs bring the entire dish together. When Vil lowers his head and eats in silence, Rin worries that the unfamiliar flavors may not suit him. Then he looks up and praises the food with complete sincerity. He admits that he has never eaten anything this delicious while camping in the wilderness. After a respectful pause, he quietly asks for another bowl. Rin modestly insists that she is only someone who enjoys cooking. Even the milk salmon skewers from lunch were, in her opinion, an ordinary outdoor meal. Vil disagrees. Plenty of people can cook simple ingredients, but very few can transform them into food this memorable. Once they have eaten their fill, he asks what Rin intends to do next. She admits that she has no idea how to return home. Still, she has little interest in spending every day consumed by anger. Until she finds a way back, she plans to use her two skills to travel, camp, and experience this new world. Vil immediately points out several problems with that plan. Mochan may solve food and shelter, but living near civilization requires money, employment, identification documents, and knowledge of local laws. Rin currently possesses none of those things. Vil therefore makes her a practical offer. She can join his adventuring party as their cook and logistics specialist. Mochan will handle supplies and transportation, while the party will help her earn money, establish an identity, and safely enter society. According to Vil, adventurers spend their lives marching through bad weather, dangerous terrain, and exhausting battles. A warm, delicious meal can restore morale better than almost anything else. Unfortunately, every member of his party is a disaster in the kitchen. Recruiting Rin would be like receiving an answer to their prayers. More importantly, Vil genuinely wants to repay her kindness. He awkwardly admits that he cannot promise every journey will be safe or comfortable, but he swears that he and his companions will protect her with everything they have. Rin likes what she hears. That night, she curls up beneath the warm blankets inside Mochan and watches two unfamiliar moons hanging beyond the window. In a single day, she has experienced confusion, rejection, loneliness, and unexpected kindness. She was kidnapped from her world and thrown away by people who saw no value in her. Yet she also happened to rescue a kind adventurer who now wants to support her. When she considers everything that has happened, the strange connection between them feels almost like fate. The next morning, Rin enthusiastically accepts the offer and officially becomes the exclusive cook and logistics specialist of Vil's party. The two celebrate with a cheerful high five before preparing to depart for El Rage. Before setting out, Rin gathers more of the wild vegetables she used in the previous night's risotto. Vil panics when he notices a nearly identical poisonous plant growing nearby. Even he cannot reliably distinguish between them, and eating the wrong one could be fatal. Rin calmly assures him that her survival strategy skill has already confirmed which plants are safe. The ability to identify edible ingredients with complete accuracy is further proof that she was practically designed to manage supplies. As they walk, Rin asks about the companions she will soon meet. Vil explains that their party is called the Gluttonous Banquet and consists of 4 members. Ed is an alchemist, while his wife, Arya, controls magical spider silk. The final member is Sinon, an elven priest. The moment Rin hears the word elf, her love of tabletop fantasy comes roaring back. She immediately imagines a graceful and beautiful young woman with an elegant presence. Vil destroys the fantasy by casually informing her that Sinon is a man. A little later, Survival Strategy detects a cluster of safe, edible berries. Rin eagerly walks toward them and becomes so focused on the discovery that she forgets to examine her surroundings. Vil suddenly shouts a warning. A flock of black phantom birds dives toward them from above. The berries are perfectly safe to eat, but the bush happens to be growing directly beneath a monster nest. Vil reacts instantly, pulling Rin out of the attack and cutting down the birds before they can leave even a scratch on her. Rin repeatedly apologizes for relying too heavily on her skill and forgetting to remain alert. Vil does not blame her. He gently assures her that she no longer has to confront every danger by herself. From now on, he will be there to protect her. Under the circumstances, it is difficult for Rin not to see him surrounded by the radiant light of a fantasy hero. Afterward, Vil explains that defeated monsters sometimes leave useful materials behind, including edible meat. Rin finally realizes that the Almirage loin from the previous day came from the same process. Her abilities may be extraordinary, but her practical knowledge of this world remains close to zero. Traveling with experienced adventurers will help fill the gaps that Survival Strategy cannot cover. They climb into Mochan and begin driving toward Elraj. At first, Vil doubts that a wheeled vehicle of that size can move at all. When it accelerates faster than any horse-drawn carriage he has ever seen, he falls completely silent. A journey that normally requires 3 days on foot is reduced to less than 3 hours. Mochan also possesses a limited concealment function that prevents it from drawing too much attention. Even so, as they approach populated territory, Vil recommends using a mountain road where fewer people are likely to see them. Even over rough forest terrain, the interior of Mochan remains as smooth and comfortable as if the vehicle were floating. The more Vil experiences Rin's abilities, the more unbelievable they become. He warns her to keep Mochan secret from as many people as possible. Something this valuable could easily attract powerful enemies. Rin agrees, but before the conversation can continue, Survival Strategy suddenly triggers an urgent danger warning. The warning points directly toward a massive flame bear standing in the road ahead. Fire burns continuously across its fur, and Vil is shocked because this species should not normally appear anywhere near the region. 3 adventurers are already fighting it. Arya throws a huge web of spider silk around the creature's neck, but the flames burn through the threads almost immediately. She slaps her forehead, realizing a little too late that using flammable restraints against a fire monster was not her finest tactical decision. Ed sees Arya losing ground and immediately panics, assuming that his wife has been injured. Seonyeon calmly reminds him that only the silk is burning and that Arya herself is completely unharmed. The familiar combination of personalities allows Rin to recognize them immediately. These must be the other 3 members of the gluttonous banquet. The entire party has finally gathered, although their first meeting happens in the middle of a battle against a monster that wandered far outside its normal territory. Vil tells Rin to remain safely inside Mochan. He is confident that his companions will not be defeated by a single flame bear. After giving the warning, he grabs his sword, leaves the vehicle, and joins Ed, Arya, and Seonyeon. Rin has only just accepted her new job, yet she is already receiving a front row seat to watch her future teammates demonstrate their abilities. The moment Vil emerges from Mochan, Ed, Arya, and Seonyeon casually raise their hands in greeting, as though the enormous burning bear were merely an impatient visitor. Seonyeon remarks that Vil completed the recruitment faster than expected. Ed, meanwhile, complains that his dream of enjoying private adventures alone with his beloved wife has already been destroyed. Vil rubs his face and asks everyone to postpone the conversation until after the monster has been defeated. Inside the vehicle, Rin crouches behind the windshield with her eyes shining. For her, this is the first real battle she has witnessed in another world, and the view feels better than the most expensive action movie experience imaginable. Ed opens the battle with ice magic, producing enormous blocks of frozen material to stop the flame bear's attacks. The creature responds by hurling an entire tree toward him. Arya reacts quickly, catching the trunk with her spider silk before her husband can be crushed. Rather than becoming frightened after nearly being killed, Ed happily declares that being rescued by his wife has only made him love her more. Sinan taps him on the forehead and reminds both husband and wife that the bear is still standing directly in front of them. Vil decides to end the fight before the conversation becomes even more embarrassing. He draws his sword and charges directly toward the flame bear. The massive creature barely has time to understand what is happening before a brilliant line flashes across its body. With a single decisive strike, Vil kills the monster and leaves behind a collection of useful materials. From inside Mochan, Rin rests her chin in her hands and stares at him with open admiration. Just when the group begins to relax, Ed notices a tiny scratch on Arya's hand. He immediately panics, calls desperately for Seonyeon, and demands emergency healing while repeatedly insisting that no scar can be allowed to remain on his wife. Arya explains that the mark is an old injury from running through the forest and has nothing to do with the flame bear. Seonyeon calmly remarks that such a minor scratch hardly matters. Ed turns bright red with embarrassment, yet he continues holding Arya's hand as though she has just returned from the edge of death. Once everyone has been confirmed unharmed, Vil asks why the three of them were wandering around an area normally used by inexperienced adventurers. Arya explains that they had planned only a casual trip to collect a few ingredients. Instead, they found a group of beginners being overwhelmed by the flame bear and stepped in to save them. A high-level monster appearing in a beginner area is far from normal. They will need to report the incident to the Adventurers Guild and investigate why it wandered so far from its natural habitat. With the battle over, Vil returns to Mochan and invites Rin outside to meet everyone. The moment she appears, she begins excitedly describing how impressive the fight looked. She praises Ed's ice magic, Arya's spider silk, and Vil's decisive finishing attack with enough enthusiasm to make all three of them feel like legendary heroes. Rin may be a newcomer, but she already understands the value of complimenting her future co-workers. Vil formally introduces Rin as the new logistics specialist and cook that the party has desperately needed. The moment Ed, Arya, and Sinan hear the word cooking, their eyes shine with almost supernatural intensity. Arya immediately steps forward, grabs both of Rin's hands, and asks whether her food is truly as good as Vil claims. When Rin shyly asks what she should cook for her introduction, all three answer at nearly the same time: meat. Realizing that food will be the fastest way to prove herself, Rin decides to prepare the phantom bird meat collected earlier. Survival strategy confirms that it is safe and works especially well with a strongly seasoned sauce. Rin immediately chooses to make sweet and savory teriyaki-style grilled skewers. Rin heads into Mochan to collect her cooking equipment. Unfortunately, the three new companions have not yet received access permission. From their perspective, Rin walks into the middle of an empty field and suddenly disappears without explanation. Inside, she quickly slices the phantom bird meat into small pieces, mixes soy sauce, sugar, and seasonings into a glaze, then marinates the meat and threads it neatly onto bamboo skewers. Vil asks whether she has been using invisibility magic simply to collect kitchen tools. Only then does Rin remember that she never granted the others permission to see Mochan. She starts to correct the mistake, but Vil tells her to leave things as they are for a little longer. Watching the others become increasingly confused is far too entertaining. The skewers begin sizzling the moment they touch the grill. The sauce caramelizes over the meat, releasing an aroma that spreads across the entire area. Rin carefully turns each skewer while worrying that the flavors from her world may be too unfamiliar for local tastes. Arya volunteers to try the first piece. The moment she bites into the richly seasoned meat, her eyes light up. Ed, Sinan, and Vil immediately follow her example. The first batch disappears before it has even had enough time to cool. Vil praises the balance between sweetness and saltiness. Ed cannot believe that ordinary monster meat can become something worthy of a celebration after passing through Rin's hands. Sinan eats just as enthusiastically as everyone else. Rin had imagined that an elf might survive on leaves, fruit, and pure forest air. The speed at which Sinan destroys the skewers corrects that misunderstanding immediately. Arya immediately embraces Rin and declares that from now on, every day of her life will be spent waiting for mealtime. Sinan maintains his dignified expression while calmly entrusting the future of his stomach to her. Vil formally hands responsibility for the party's supplies and kitchen to their new recruit. Rin bows and promises to work hard, while politely asking everyone to be patient with her as she adjusts to the job. After everyone has eaten, Rin finally grants Ed, Arya, and Sinan access to Mochan. The previously invisible camper suddenly appears before them, leaving all three completely speechless. When they step inside and discover an interior far larger than the outside, their expressions become a perfect combination of confusion and amazement. The group boards Mochan and continues toward El Raj. The vehicle travels faster than a racing carriage, yet the interior remains perfectly smooth. Ed, Arya, and Sinan press themselves against the windows, watching the landscape rush past while debating how the vehicle could possibly function. They suggest combinations of advanced spatial, movement, protective, and energy magic. The longer they discuss it, the more confused they become. Mochan operates far beyond the magical system understood by the people of this world. Seeing their excitement, Rin quietly asks Vil whether the vehicle should be treated as a closely guarded secret. Vil agrees without hesitation. A mobile base capable of providing transportation, shelter, food, water, and storage would become the target of nobles, merchants, armies, and criminals alike. If powerful people discovered everything Mochan could do, they might start an international conflict simply to possess it. Protecting the secret is therefore the same as protecting Rin's life. Vil then awkwardly apologizes for already reporting some information about Rin to the Adventurers Guild. A summoning from another world may involve matters of national security, so he could not responsibly keep everything hidden. Rin is not angry. She understands that she needs legal identification, income, information about this world, and any possible clue that might help her return home. Remaining completely hidden would only prevent the guild from offering assistance. As they travel, Vil explains that El Raj belongs to a large island nation surrounded by the sea. The country was founded by people who rejected war and searched for a place where different races could live peacefully. Humans, elves, dwarves, and beastfolk crossed the ocean together and built the nation over generations. Because coexistence is part of its history, an inexperienced otherworlder like Rin is far more likely to be welcomed there than feared or rejected. However, Vil warns that the rest of the world is not always so accepting. The island nation trades openly with foreign powers, but remains cautious of kingdoms that still follow rigid feudal traditions. Elrage is also a major center of international commerce, with ships, merchants, and information arriving constantly. If anyone has heard recent rumors about the summoning of a saint, the Adventurers Guild in Elrage is one of the best places to investigate. While Vil discusses international politics and national security, Rin's attention immediately drifts toward the fresh fish markets and enormous selection of seafood she expects to find in a coastal city. Vil laughs and informs her that Elrage is nearly as large as the royal capital. To Rin, that apparently means only one thing, an even greater number of ingredients to explore. Near Elrage, Rin pulls Mochan away from the main road and returns it to her storage space before anyone can notice. The group enters the city on foot. Rin looks everywhere at once, fascinated by the buildings, canals, markets, and many different races moving through the streets. Arya, Ed, and Sinon return to the party headquarters to clean and prepare a welcome celebration. Vil takes Rin directly to the Adventurers Guild so she can complete her employment registration. At the reception counter, Rin comes face to face with an adorable employee whose pointed ears and wagging tail immediately capture her full attention. She becomes so fascinated that she almost forgets why she came. Vil laughs and explains that this is Rin's first time meeting a kobold. The receptionist introduces herself as Sheila and casually mentions that she has worked at the guild for around 20 years. When Vil repeats the number far too loudly, Sheila gives him a terrifying look and reminds him that discussing a woman's age is one of the fastest ways to shorten an adventurer's life. Sheila checks the latest reports and confirms that the beginners attacked by the flame bear returned safely. With the emergency resolved, she gives Rin an application form for the logistics position in the gluttonous banquet. Rin begins writing in Japanese, only to watch the characters transform automatically into the local language. Even more surprisingly, she can read and understand everything on the page as naturally as if she had studied it for years. Once the paperwork is approved, Sheila stamps the application and warmly welcomes Rin to the guild. Vil then explains that they must meet the person in charge. The two enter the office of Guildmaster Tori, a bald man wearing an eye patch who looks more like the leader of a criminal organization than a friendly administrator. The moment he speaks, however, he proves direct, practical, and surprisingly approachable. Tori reveals that the guild has received an urgent intelligence report concerning the summoning of a saint, an ancient ritual believed to have disappeared into legend centuries ago. Tori studies Vil and remarks that he has discovered an exceptionally rare person. Not only did Vil locate someone involved in the summoning, but he also recruited her into his own party before anyone else could reach her. When questioned, Rin tells the truth. She was summoned alongside a younger student. The other girl was welcomed as the saint and taken away by a handsome nobleman, while Rin was declared useless and thrown into the wilderness. To confirm her story, Tori asked permission to examine Rin's status using appraisal magic. Vil immediately objects that a person's status information is private. Rin becomes nervous for an entirely different reason, wondering whether the spell might reveal her weight or financial history. Tori laughs and assures her that his appraisal ability is nowhere near powerful enough to uncover such personal secrets. Relieved, Rin agrees to the examination. A glowing blue status screen appears, revealing that Rin possesses two classes, Otherworlder and Traveler. It also displays survival strategy and the extraordinary Mochan ability. Tori explains that Otherworlder is an exclusive class granted to people who arrive from another world. Such individuals usually receive a random special skill and an additional profession. The result confirms beyond doubt that Rin was summoned from elsewhere. However, she possesses no class, title, or ability connected to being a saint. Vil and Tori can barely hide their admiration as they study Rin's abilities, but the more important question is who performed the summoning and why. Vil explains that the ritual requires an enormous amount of magical energy. A nation would normally attempt it only during a catastrophic war, a monster invasion, a deadly plague, or another crisis threatening its survival. Yet the guild has received no reports of any major conflict or disaster that would justify using such an extreme. Vil then remembers the flame bear that appeared in the beginner hunting area earlier that day. A powerful monster suddenly entering territory far outside its normal range may be an early warning of something larger. Tori agrees that the possibility deserves attention, although a single incident is not enough to connect it directly to the summoning ritual. More strangely, the flame bear Vil defeated appeared much weaker and thinner than a healthy member of its species. Even weakened, the bear remained powerful enough to slaughter inexperienced adventurers. Tori decides they cannot afford to ignore the situation. He assigns the gluttonous banquet to patrol the outer region around Elrage for the near future. They can continue accepting work, but they must remain close enough to respond if more abnormal monsters appear. Vil accepts the mission. Rin watches with widened eyes, realizing that the party she casually joined is influential enough to receive an important assignment directly from the guildmaster. After leaving the guild, Rin and Vil travel to the headquarters of the gluttonous banquet where Ed, Arya, and Sinon are waiting. The house is surprisingly large. Vil explains that the previous owner died suddenly, which immediately makes Rin nervous about possible ghosts. Sinon calmly reminds her that he is a priest. If a ghost appears, he will simply send it peacefully into the afterlife. What Rin appreciates most is the enormous backyard. It provides more than enough space to summon Mochan without curious neighbors discovering the party's greatest secret. For dinner, Rin uses the Al-Mirage meat Vil collected, Tilla mushrooms brought by Ed, and the phantom bird eggs. She tears the mushrooms into smaller pieces, seasons sliced meat with soy sauce, cooking wine, and sugar, then fries everything together for a mixed rice dish. She beats the eggs with chopped green onions and rolls them into soft layers. Finally, she cuts the Al-Mirage loin into thick pieces, sears them in a hot pan, and finishes them with a glossy sauce made from ginger and soy. Rather than relying entirely on supplies from Mochan, Rin combines premium ingredients from this world with the cooking techniques she knows best. Before long, 3 dishes are ready: mushroom and meat mixed rice, rolled phantom bird eggs with green onions, and thick Al-Mirage steaks covered in fragrant ginger sauce. The aroma spreads through every room of the headquarters. The moment the food reaches the table, the entire party becomes completely silent. Rin begins sweating, convinced that she has somehow ruined the meal. In reality, everyone is simply shocked that the food looks and smells better than they imagined possible. Vil repeatedly apologizes for underestimating their new cook. Rin quickly tells them to stop staring and begin eating. Arya takes the first spoonful of mixed rice, while Ed, Sinon, and Vil immediately reach for the dishes they have been watching most closely. Arya praises the deep flavor of the Tilla mushrooms and how perfectly they complement the seasoned meat. Ed declares that the meal restores his energy as though someone has completely refilled his stamina. Sinon becomes fascinated by the rolled eggs. Their richness is balanced by the fresh flavor and slight crunch of the green onions, keeping the dish light enough to eat continuously. After only 2 bites, the dignified elven priest has already abandoned most of his usual restraint. Vil focuses entirely on the Al-Mirage steak with ginger sauce. The meat is normally unpleasantly tough, yet Rin has somehow made it tender and juicy. The sweet and salty glaze covers every piece, while the aroma of ginger makes it almost impossible to stop eating. Vil finishes his first bowl of rice and immediately requests another. Arya extends her bowl as well. Ed loudly demands both additional rice and more meat. Even Sinon abandons his pride and announces that he refuses to sit quietly while everyone else eats the remaining food. Within moments, the peaceful dinner table becomes a battlefield where every member of the gluttonous banquet fights for one more serving. After receiving a mission to survey the area surrounding Elrage, Vil gathers the gluttonous table to discuss their route. He suggests starting at the coast before circling back toward the city. The moment everyone hears the word beach, however, the entire party forgets the word survey. Ed starts thinking about fish. Sinon remembers that shellfish are currently in season, and Arya immediately decides that lunch must involve seafood. The 4 reach an agreement so quickly that Rin never gets a chance to object. She's only just finished making breakfast, and this group is already scheduling lunch. They clearly live to eat rather than eat to live. Just as they are preparing to leave, a young cat beastman named Rent arrives at the base. He is a member of Lucky 4-Leaf Clover, the beginner party that was attacked by the flame bear during the previous incident. Rent bows deeply and thanks them, explaining that without the gluttonous table, his entire party might have been permanently removed from the game. Vil refuses to take all the credit because he was not present when the attack began. He simply says that experienced adventurers helping beginners is only natural. Once Rent and his friends grow stronger, they should offer the same helping hand to the next generation of newcomers. Rin introduces herself as the party's new transporter and cook, then asks why someone so young is already doing an adult's job. She quickly clarifies that she means working as an adventurer. Rent explains that he lives in a church orphanage and accepts missions with his friends to help cover the living expenses. Rin understands that he takes pride in his decision, so she does not look at him with pity. Instead, she brings out a box of homemade Halberry cookies and asks him to share them with everyone at the orphanage. Rent takes 1 bite and looks as though his soul has entered another world. The crisp biscuit and the sweet and sour berry flavor completely overwhelm him. The meeting also helps Rin understand why their current survey matters. Making the surrounding area safer will allow children like Rent to work without constantly risking their lives. The moment Rent runs away, 4 pairs of eyes immediately lock onto the remaining box of cookies. Someone claims to smell something dangerous, another says the scent is driving them insane, and the others demand to know why Rin is pretending she has nothing hidden. Rin hurriedly assures them that everyone still has a share. Only then do the 4 adventurers return to a relatively calm state. The group boards Mochan and leaves the city. They must take a fairly long detour because the magical camper cannot simply appear in the middle of a crowded harbor. Vil apologizes for making Rin drive so far, but she explains that delivering the party safely is exactly what a transporter is supposed to do. Vil points out that an ordinary transporter cannot carry an entire team inside a fully equipped mobile base. Reaching the coast on foot would take almost half a day. Inside Mochan, everyone can eat cookies, admire the scenery, and still arrive far more quickly. When they reach an empty stretch of beach, Vil, Ed, Arya, and Senyon split up to begin the survey. Rin remains beside Mochan to prepare lunch. Before the others leave, she notices their weapons and asks how they carry them so conveniently. Vil explains that each weapon was custom-made and connected to its owner through a magical contract. It can be summoned or stored at will, although such equipment is extremely expensive. Rin also realizes that this world lacks the convenient and widely available item storage found in games. Adventurers must still carry their own supplies and collected materials, which explains why professional transporters are so highly valued. The four adventurers spread out along the coastline. Arya patrols while using her threads to collect shellfish and other edible ingredients. Meanwhile, Rin begins preparing lunch inside Mochan. She cooks rice with squid and tomatoes, then takes out eggplants and fresh fish for the main dishes. Arya returns, but the moment she sees the eggplant, she admits that she does not like vegetables. Rin explains that vegetables help wounds heal, strengthen the immune system, and keep the body functioning properly. At the very least, Arya must eat a small portion, unless she wants to spend the next few days regretting it. Arya reluctantly agrees, wearing the grave expression of someone preparing to consume poison. Immediately afterward, she uses her threads to pull forward a large fish she caught during the survey. While helping Rin prepare the fish, Arya changes the subject faster than a fillet turning in a frying pan. She asks whether Rin has a boyfriend, and then casually investigates what she thinks about Vil. Rin immediately waves her hands and turns bright red, admitting that it would be difficult to dislike someone as handsome and dependable as him, while firmly refusing to say she has romantic feelings. When Arya tries to push the question further, Rin reverses the interrogation and asks how Arya and Ed originally met. In a matter of seconds, Mochan's kitchen transforms from a lunch station into a highly aggressive interview room. Arya becomes so embarrassed that she looks ready to dig a hole and disappear. Rin then delivers the decisive threat. Unless Arya tells the story, she may lose all motivation to cook, leaving the entire party to eat dirt for lunch. A threat aimed directly at the stomach is more effective than almost any spell. At that moment, Vil, Ed, and Senyon return. After learning that Rin merely asked about their early romance, Ed remarks that Arya is most adorable when she becomes embarrassed. Arya covers her face in defeat, while Rin thanks him for allowing her to witness such a rare version of his wife. The conversation pauses when Ed produces a magical container holding a strange squid he collected as a gift for Rin. She examines it with survival strategy and confirms that it is a suru squid, not only edible but considered a premium ingredient. The others immediately ask what she can make with it. Rin announces that she can turn it into everything from a main course to a perfect drinking snack. The way the gluttonous table's eyes begin shining makes the squid's fate very clear. That meal can wait, however, because lunch is already prepared. The menu consists of pan-seared fish, tomato rice, and eggplant covered with cheese and tomato sauce. Vil hesitates when he sees the amount of vegetables, while Arya holds her fork as though expecting betrayal. One bite changes everything. The rich cheese and lightly acidic tomato sauce turn the eggplant into something completely different. Ed is shocked to see his vegetable-avoiding wife voluntarily take another serving. Senyon cannot understand how ordinary produce becomes so delicious once Rin touches it, while Vil is completely conquered by the tomato rice. Rin decides that she will create more vegetable dishes so the party can maintain a balanced diet. Meat and fish will remain untouched because reducing either portion would be equivalent to declaring war. After lunch, Arya asks whether Rin wants any other ingredients. Remembering the suru squid, Rin begins planning bouillabaisse, a fisherman-style seafood stew. With fish, shrimp, crab, tomatoes, and warming spices, the entire pot would become incredibly fragrant. Vil and Ed begin imagining the flavor before she even finishes describing it. Senyon immediately suggests inspecting the nearby waters. Only then does the group remember that the original purpose of the journey was to survey the surrounding region. Before they can reflect on how easily food distracted them, a young adventurer runs over asking for help. Everyone immediately follows, with Rin becoming swept into the formation and running alongside them. At the shoreline, they discover an enormous creature resembling an orca stranded on the sand. Vil identifies it as a prankster, a magical beast with powerful telepathy and a particular fondness for playing tricks on humans. The prankster speaks directly into Rin's mind. It admits that it planned to dive beneath the water, leap into the air, and terrify a nearby adventuring party. Unfortunately, it calculated the launch perfectly and forgot to calculate the landing. The result is an enormous body embedded in the beach, slowly roasting beneath the sunlight while waiting for someone to help. Rin wants to point out that the prank clearly returned to its owner, but the creature hurriedly promises to behave and provide a reward if they return it to the sea. The younger adventurers admit that they lack the strength to move it and therefore came to ask the gluttonous table for assistance. Rin notices that the sun is intense and the prankster's skin is beginning to dry. She asks Ed to create a large mass of water and pour it over the creature to cool it down. The magical beast thanks them dramatically, claiming that its precious skin nearly became sun-dried fish. Vil and the others then gather their strength and begin pushing. Unfortunately, the creature's enormous weight and the soft sand prevent it from moving even slightly. The entire party turns red from effort while the prankster remains in place like a small hill. Brute force clearly cannot overcome the bank of sand separating it from the ocean. Ed and Vil continue pushing, with Ed using every bit of strength available because Arya is watching. The real obstacle, however, is the elevated strip of sand between the prankster and the water. Rin suggests creating a body of water large enough to float the creature. Ed admits that producing something of that size is beyond his ability. Rin immediately changes the plan. They can dig a channel from the sea to the stranded creature. Earth magic can form the path, while water magic creates the current needed to carry it back. Ed begins using both earth and water magic to construct the channel. Before the plan can take effect, the sea ahead suddenly begins churning. Several gigantic purple tentacles rise from the surface and interrupt the rescue. Seinon immediately activates her support magic as an enormous octopus-like creature emerges among the waves. The giant octopus reaches its tentacles toward the prankster. Even with death approaching directly in front of it, the stranded creature remains convinced that the attacker is interested in its beautiful and youthful skin. Apparently, self-admiration continues functioning even when basic survival instincts have gone offline. The party immediately divides into two groups. Arya tells Rin to remain with the rescue team while the four adventurers spread out to confront the monster. Rin examines it with survival strategy and discovers that the area between its eyes is the most vulnerable point. She briefly wonders how much sauce would be required if they tried cooking something that large, then immediately calls Vil and directs him toward the weakness. People from the shore arrive carrying shovels and begin digging a trench between the prankster and the sea. Others continuously pour water across its body. Rin grabs a bucket and joins them. The scene resembles an entire village attempting to rescue a ship stranded on land. The trench is still unfinished and the prankster has not stopped praising itself. Rin finally mutters that at this rate, she might as well drop the bucket and turn the giant octopus into crispy Tatsuda age. The moment food is mentioned, the party's fighting spirit rises dramatically. Seinon suggests grilling the tentacles on skewers. Ed complains that the meat will probably be tough and smell unpleasant. Vil only needs to imagine Rin transforming it into something delicious before his expression becomes far more serious. Their motivation to rescue the self-proclaimed sea deity has suddenly received an additional dinner-related enhancement. Ed attacks from a distance while Seinon supports him. Arya deploys SD Guard, using countless threads to bind the octopus's body and tentacles, creating an opening for Vil to approach. On the other side, the villagers continue extending the trench and driving water through it. Watching everyone struggle for its sake, the prankster concludes that this must be proof that the entire world loves it. Rin, meanwhile, continues evaluating which parts of the octopus would be best for frying. The moment the trench connects with the ocean, everyone pushes together and sends the prankster sliding through the flowing water. The octopus continues struggling against Arya's threads. Vil waits until the space between its eyes becomes exposed, then charges forward and drives his sword into the exact location Rin identified. The attack strikes its weakness, causing the magical beast to dissolve into particles of light. At nearly the same moment, the prankster reaches deep water. The rescue operation and the battle are completed together. The prankster returns to thank everyone and drops a large collection of fish, shrimp, crab, and other fresh seafood as payment. Before leaving, it recognizes that Rin came from another world and says that speaking with her was highly entertaining. Rin does not have time to ask how it knows because the self-proclaimed goddess of the sea immediately dives out of sight. A small unidentified red object briefly appears in her hand, adding a new mystery to the excitement of receiving so many ingredients. Arya hugs an enormous shrimp with shining eyes. Seinon declares the seafood to be a blessing from the goddess of the sea. Ed is already imagining a table overflowing with food, while Vil returns carrying a gigantic severed tentacle as an additional gift for Rin. Their collection is far greater than anyone expected. With the entire party watching, Rin immediately announces the evening menu. She sets up a cooking area directly on the beach. Seafood covers the grill, while a large pot of bouillabaisse filled with crab, shrimp, fish, tomatoes, and vegetables simmers nearby. The suru squid Ed brought back is sautéed with butter and potatoes. The aroma spreads through the sea breeze, causing every stomach nearby to begin protesting. Ed and Vil choose beer, Seinon pours red wine, and Arya raises a glass of sparkling wine. Rin sticks to barley tea because she still has to drive Mo-chan. A cook may love preparing a feast, but the person responsible for transportation cannot forget her duties. Vil raises his cup and reminds everyone that they saved the prankster thanks in large part to Rin's ideas, skills, and support. She quickly waves away the praise and insists that it was a group effort. Ed and Seinon agree that the new member has already made their missions easier in many ways, not only inside the kitchen. Arya embraces Rin and thanks her for turning a day of fieldwork into something so comfortable and enjoyable. Vil sincerely says that he is glad they met. After once being rejected as useless, hearing genuine recognition from her new companions makes Rin's face turn bright red. She becomes so emotional that she cannot immediately think of an answer. Vil, Ed, Arya, and Seinon raise their cups and officially welcome Rin as a member of the gluttonous table. Rin reminds everyone that she still has to drive, so she will celebrate with her extremely powerful barley smoothie instead. Beneath the golden light of sunset spreading across the ocean, the five clink their glasses to celebrate the successful completion of her first mission. The party continues devouring the seafood stew, and even the members who normally avoid vegetables admit that the dish tastes far better than expected. However, as darkness settles over a nearby forest, a pair of red eyes silently opens inside a stone cave covered in tangled purple threads. Sharp teeth slowly appear beneath them. No one knows what kind of creature has awakened or whether it is connected to the strange activity surrounding Elrage. While the gluttonous table continues enjoying its feast beside the sea, a new threat quietly begins to stir. The price of celebrating Prankster's rescue with an enormous seafood feast is that the entire gluttonous banquet party does not drag itself back to headquarters until nearly the following morning. Arya is still stretched across the couch with her head resting on Rin's lap. An alarm clock may fail, but the stomachs of this party appear to be permanently connected to Rin's kitchen. The moment the aroma of grilled seafood and hot stew spreads through the room, Arya springs upright as though launched by a hidden mechanism. Her body may be exhausted, but missing breakfast prepared by Rin is simply not an option. The honest reaction makes Rin so happy that she gains even more enthusiasm for cooking. Meanwhile, Vil eats while planning their next move. Once breakfast is finished, they will visit the Adventurers Guild and report everything that happened along the coast. Rin asks to accompany him so she can search for information about the Saintess summoning ritual. Before either of them can even leave the table, Sheila kicks open the door and storms inside like a hurricane. She calls for every member of the gluttonous banquet with panic written across her face. Vil assumes the receptionist has come to demand their overdue report, but Sheila announces that an emergency has occurred. The peaceful domestic atmosphere disappears instantly, replaced by the urgent rhythm of professional adventurers preparing for danger. Inside Guildmaster Tori's office, the group learns that a wild dungeon has suddenly appeared in the forest near Elrage. Dungeons forming naturally is not unusual, but they normally produce advanced warning signs such as gathering miasma, disturbances in the Earth's magical flow, or visible distortions in space. This location was completely normal until the previous day, without even the slightest abnormality in its mana. Then an enormous entrance simply appeared overnight. The situation is so unreasonable that even the guild's most experienced employees have no explanation. Tori fears that monsters from inside may pour toward Elrage before the city has time to prepare. To prevent panic, the guild has suppressed the information and concealed the dungeon entrance with illusion magic. The mission of exploring the interior, determining its structure, and evaluating the danger level is therefore assigned entirely to the gluttonous banquet. Vil does not immediately decide what caused it. However, the instincts of a veteran adventurer tell him that the lost flame bear, the prankster incident at the coast, and now a dungeon appearing almost beside the city are beginning to form a much more disturbing picture. He accepts the assignment, but emphasizes that their objective is not to rush inside and eliminate everything. They must gather information and search for clues. Because no one knows how long the expedition will last, Vil asks Rin to prepare additional supplies. Sheila immediately volunteers to take her shopping and drags her through several secret stores ordinary customers would never discover. Tori shouts after Sheila that her guild work is still unfinished, but the receptionist moves so quickly that no one can stop her. Thanks to the unexpected shopping tour, Rin soon fills Mochan's spatial storage with enough food and essential supplies for the expedition. At the city gate, Rin appears in a brand new outdoor outfit, prompting Arya to immediately call her adorable. Even more noticeable is the shining red accessory on Arya's forehead, resembling a miniature third eye. She demonstrates its ability by sensing Vil and Seinon approaching from behind without turning around. All five members quickly leave the city. The farther they travel, the more nervous Rin becomes. A dungeon appearing this close to a populated area is frightening. Vil places a reassuring hand on her shoulder and reminds her that they are investigating precisely so the danger can be stopped before it becomes a disaster. She does not have to carry the responsibility of protecting Elrage by herself. His warm words help Rin regain her confidence, and she promises that both she and Mochan will provide every bit of support they can. After only around 15 minutes of walking, the party reaches the site. The incredibly short distance makes Rin understand why the guild reacted with such urgency. Seinon removes the concealing illusion, revealing a dark cavern entrance extending deep into the cliff. Arya sends glowing threads inside to investigate. She confirms that the passage is wide and that she cannot currently sense any enemies nearby. Ed suggests using Rin's Mochan to travel through the dungeon more quickly, but Vil immediately refuses. If their only objective were eliminating monsters, speed would be useful. This mission requires them to examine every trace they find. Driving directly into the depths could make them miss evidence or rush into a trap. Vil places himself and Arya at the front, Rin in the center, and Ed and Senyon behind her. The completely protective formation makes Rin feel guilty because she cannot contribute directly during combat. Vil immediately rejects that idea. A transporter is supposed to be protected. An army cannot function without supplies, and Senyon reminds her that everyone will depend on Mochan whenever they stop to rest. Arya insists that without Rin, the mission might have to be abandoned halfway through. Ed tells her to take her time becoming accustomed to adventuring. After previously being dismissed as useless by the foolish summoners, receiving such sincere recognition nearly brings Rin to tears. She steadies herself and walks confidently into the dungeon at the center of the formation. Cold blue light covers the tunnel walls. Sinon notices an unusually sweet floral scent, and Arya predicts that flower lizards are waiting ahead. These monsters disguise their heads as brightly colored blossoms to lure prey closer. When the petals open and reveal reptilian faces with long tongues, Rin immediately moves closer to Vil. Ed refuses to let the monsters approach. He raises one hand and instantly changes his magic to the fire element. Transparent blocks trap each creature separately before flames erupt inside and incinerate them within seconds. Ed explains that the species is extremely weak against fire. Isolating them and burning them is enough. Rin remains outside the fight and uses survival strategy to confirm that their meat is edible before collecting the materials. For a brief moment, she notices a strange golden outline surrounding the packaged meat, but it disappears before she can understand what it means. At that moment, a small winged shadow dives from above. Rin instinctively raises her arms and catches the creature against her chest. Vil immediately warns her not to touch unknown creatures carelessly. Fortunately, it is only a young wingrynx, an animal resembling a wildcat with large wings growing from its back. At this age, it is not considered particularly dangerous, and there is no sign of its mother nearby. Rather than resisting, the creature calmly rubs its head against Rin. Hearing its stomach growl, she offers it some flower lizard meat. Survival strategy displays information again, but this time, it does not recommend turning the animal into food. Rin breathes a sigh of relief. No matter what the skill might have said, she could never place something this round and adorable on the menu. The wingrynx's fur reminds Rin of the black cat she once raised in her original world. Without thinking much about it, she gives the creature the name Gomamiso. The instant the name leaves her mouth, the small animal answers directly inside her mind and introduces itself as Gomamiso. Rin panics and tells everyone that the cat just spoke to her. The other members, however, hear nothing except an enthusiastic series of meows. After examining the creature, Sinon concludes that Gomamiso has become a named spirit beast. The fact that only Rin can understand its voice means a bond has already formed between them. Vil is even more surprised because taming an ordinary wingrynx is normally extremely difficult. Rin has no beast tamer profession, performed no ritual, and did not overpower the creature in battle. She simply fed it and casually gave it a name, completing something that normally requires enormous effort. Rin herself has no idea why it happened so easily, almost as though the entire process were a small miracle. Rin feels guilty about creating another complication in the middle of a mission, but no one in the party is willing to abandon a young animal. Arya has already been completely defeated by Gomamiso's adorable appearance. Ed explains that wingrynxes raised from childhood usually become extremely attached to their owners. Vil promises to register Rin as a beast tamer when they return. For the moment, Gomamiso is officially accepted as the newest member of the group. The party continues deeper until they reach a cavern with an extremely high ceiling. Gomamiso rests comfortably in Rin's arms but refuses to stop talking. It proudly claims that with a single jump, it could touch the ceiling. Rin does not want to crush the little creature's confidence, so she gently replies that having dreams is a wonderful thing. Immediately afterwards, survival strategy displays a red warning across the ground. Rin quickly stops everyone before anyone can step into the dangerous area. Arya moves forward and confirms that it is a magical trap. She surrounds the area with glowing blue lines and disables the purple spell circle hidden beneath the floor. Rin explains that survival strategy warned her of the danger in advance. The ability once dismissed as useless has now directly saved the entire party from a potentially fatal trap. The moment the trap is neutralized, Gomamiso's fur rises. It bares its teeth and growls toward the darkness. The reaction immediately places everyone on alert. Ed orders Rin to move back. Holding the small spirit beast, she retreats behind the others and summons Mochan. Vil asks Senyon to prepare defensive magic, and a protective layer of energy quickly surrounds the party. From the darkness emerges a cockatrice with the head of a chicken and the tail of a snake. Vil orders Rin not to open the vehicle under any circumstances. She must remain inside with Gomamiso. As Rin nervously watches through the window, survival strategy produces another message. Not only is cockatrice meat edible, it is apparently considered exceptionally delicious. Her fear barely has time to develop before her instincts as a cook kick it straight out of her mind. While the others prepare for battle, Rin is already wondering which cut would be best for their first meal inside the dungeon. The cockatrice opens its beak and lets out a loud cock-a-doodle-doo. A thick wave of purple poisonous breath immediately surges toward the party. Fortunately, their defenses are already in place. The poison cannot break through, and no one shows any signs of being affected. Arya instantly releases her threads and tears the cockatrice apart with a single precise horizontal. It is destroyed before it can attack again and dissolves into particles of light. Watching through Mo-chan's window, Rin feels as though she has just witnessed the ingredients being prepared right in front of her. Gomamiso stares at the empty space and asks where the enemy went. It then proudly declares that the frightening tail never scared it at all. The moment Rin reminds it that the tail looked exactly like a snake, the little spirit beast immediately curls into a ball. Apparently, Gomamiso is already the undefeated champion of pretending to be brave. Rin laughs, pulls her new companion closer, and buries her face in its fur until it has no opportunity to preserve its dignity. Vil returns and finally relaxes after confirming that both of them are safe. He then places the rare cockatrice meat on the table. The meat is pink, soft, and completely different from the monster's grotesque appearance. Rin decides to prepare cockatrice nanban, an otherworldly version of chicken nanban. Vil stays behind to help, but accidentally destroys most of the boiled eggs while peeling them. He apologizes repeatedly. Rin simply laughs and thanks him because the eggs need to be crushed for the sauce anyway. Gomamiso sleeps peacefully on a seat while Rin crushes the eggs and combines them with onion, pickled cucumber, and mayonnaise to create tartar sauce. Vil tastes a spoonful and immediately freezes. In his imagination, Rin transforms into a culinary demon who rules over all taste, while he can do nothing except kneel before the overwhelming authority of a single spoonful of sauce. Just as the food is nearly complete, Ed, Arya, and Senyon return to Mo-chan after investigating the surrounding area. They discovered no additional emergencies, but every monster on this floor seems weaker than normal. Vil confirms that the cockatrice was also weakened, just like the flame bear that appeared in the wrong region. The similarity does not reassure the party. It makes the mystery even more suspicious. However, they still lack enough evidence to confirm either the cause or the connection between the incidents. Arya also reports discovering a staircase leading to the next floor. Rin notices that although no one is injured, everyone is exhausted from remaining alert in a place whose rules they do not understand. She immediately stops the discussion, thinking while hungry will only make everyone focus on increasingly negative theories. Before continuing deeper, they must eat, recover their energy, and restore their morale. The cockatrice meat is fried until its coating becomes golden and crisp, covered in a rich, sweet and sour sauce, and generously topped with creamy tartar sauce as soft as clouds. Rin serves it with fresh vegetables and steaming rice. The entire table falls silent after the first bite. Senyon cannot believe that meat from a poisonous monster can be this tender and juicy. Ed continues eating while calling the dish dangerously powerful. Arya complains that Rin keeps creating flavors that make it impossible for them to return to their former lives. The entire party begins calling her a demon. Although this time the title is clearly intended as praise. Rin immediately insists that she is only a cook and that the nickname Food Demon is merely a joke about her ability to conquer everyone's stomachs. Vil observes that the richness of the tartar sauce is balanced by the sweet and sour glaze and the vegetables, preventing the dish from becoming too heavy. Even Arya, who normally avoids vegetables, is pulled in by the combination. Gomamiso receives its own plate containing soft meat and vegetables. At first, it focuses entirely on the meat. When Rin reminds it that it promised to try the vegetables, Gomamiso obediently takes one bite and immediately declares them delicious. Watching this, Arya cautiously tries some as well. She eventually turns red and admits that vegetables taste much better than expected when eaten with meat and sauce. Ed is delighted that his wife has voluntarily eaten vegetables. However, when Rin translates Gomamiso's compliment toward Arya, he suddenly appears ready to compete with a small cat for her attention. Senyon reminds him that becoming jealous of Rin's newly adopted spirit beast will not help him mature. Everyone around the table laughs. Rin quietly watches her companions enjoying themselves and realizes that at some point, without even noticing, she naturally became part of the gluttonous banquet. The meal does not solve the mystery of the dungeon or return the monsters to normal. However, it restores the party's strength and clears their minds before they continue deeper. Before the cockatrice feast has even been fully digested, the gluttonous banquet resumes its investigation of the abnormal dungeon near Elraj. While Ed and Arya eliminate the surrounding monsters, Rin remains inside Mo-chan with Vil, Senyon, and Gomamiso to organize their loot. Every piece of monster meat appears already cleaned and divided into perfect portions, with a beautiful balance of lean meat and fat resembling premium Wagyu beef. Gomamiso stares intensely at the pile and asks whether all of it belongs to her. Rin has to hold the little creature back and remind her that the food is for the entire party. If she wants to eat, she must wait until Rin finishes cooking it. Rin is delighted that the dungeon processes the loot automatically. She knows how to choose ingredients and prepare meals, but she has no experience dismantling an entire animal. Saintess explains that he can butcher prey because elves still learn hunting as a basic survival skill. Unfortunately, his cooking ability has barely progressed beyond placing meat over a fire. Vil reveals that Saintess knows how to obtain meat, but has no idea how to prepare it properly. Before Rin joined them, the party regularly produced meat that was completely burned on the outside while somehow remaining raw in the middle. Gomamiso casually announces that she can eat raw meat, forcing Rin to warn her seriously that not every type of meat is safe without proper preparation. Ed and Arya return carrying several bags of loot containing meat, eggs, and various other ingredients. Rin worries that they must have fought far too many battles, but Ed says they mostly treated it as an opportunity to spend time together. The real reason is that every monster on the floor was abnormally weak. Their appearances were still intimidating, but their combat abilities had clearly deteriorated, just like the fire bear that wandered into the beginner area and the cockatrice they recently defeated. Such a large supply of ingredients should have been excellent news, yet both Vil and Saintess remain concerned. The same phenomenon has now appeared among several species and in multiple locations, proving that the dungeon is concealing a problem whose cause remains unknown. The party does not immediately blame the Saintess summoning ritual or any particular individual. They simply agree to continue deeper and search for evidence. After leaving Mochan, the party enters a vast green grassland beneath a perfectly clear sky. The grass beneath their feet, the wind against their faces, and the surrounding trees all feel as real as a promised land, despite the fact that they remain deep underground. Arya and Ed explain that the area seems to have been created through a combination of materialized illusions and spatial magic. The region has physical boundaries, but its two ends have been connected into a closed loop. Anyone who fails to recognize the trick could continue walking indefinitely, repeatedly returning to the same place while believing they were still moving forward. Using her ability to sense magical energy, Arya discovers several concentrated mana points scattered across the grassland, preventing the group from becoming completely lost. Rin compares the structure to a game and suggests that destroying those points may weaken the artificial space and reveal a path to the floor below. It is only a theory, but it remains their most reasonable direction of investigation. Vil tells Rin to keep Mochan ready. At the first sign of danger, she must take Gomamiso inside immediately. Unfortunately, the danger arrives before they can prepare any further. The space around one of the mana points suddenly seals itself off, and two red and white humanoid mechanical creatures appear as though the dungeon's defensive system has just activated. Vil immediately shouts a warning. Rin summons Mochan, grabs Gomamiso, and rushes inside before the first attack reaches them. The red unit fires an energy beam that causes a massive explosion beside the vehicle. The shockwave leaves Rin pale with fear, but fortunately, both she and Gomamiso remain safe within Mochan. Outside, Vil closes the distance with one target while Ed and Arya deploy their weapons. After observing the creatures, Saintess notices that their joints appear weaker than the rest of their bodies. He divides the targets between the party members. Vil will handle the white unit, while Arya restrains the red one with her thread so Ed can finish it with lightning magic. Saintess activates his supporting spells and calmly declares that anyone who dares interrupt the gluttonous banquet's meal must face punishment. Vil swings a great sword normally requiring two hands with only one arm and strikes the mechanical creature's weak point. Arya wraps the other target completely inside a cocoon of thread. With the machine unable to move, Ed sends electricity surging through its body. Their support, restraint, and finishing attacks flow together without interruption. Both defensive units are destroyed within moments. Saintess continues smiling calmly amid the blue electricity, making Rin wonder whether the normally gentle cleric can sometimes appear even more frightening than their enemies. Once the area is secure, Vil and Saintess immediately check on Rin. She confirms that she is unharmed and was only frightened by the sudden attack. Saintess offers his hand and helps her step out of Mochan. Arya rushes forward and embraces Rin with such force that both of them fall onto the ground. She holds on so tightly that Ed has to remind his wife to release her. Vil seriously apologizes for failing to investigate the area carefully enough and placing Rin in danger. Rin does not blame him. Instead, she thanks the party for constantly protecting someone with so little practical combat experience. To lighten the heavy atmosphere, Rin takes the wild ox meat into the kitchen and prepares T-bone steaks along with several slices of freshly grilled beef. The surface is beautifully seared and fragrant, while the inside remains tender and filled with juice. Vil had assumed that grilling tenderloin would make it dry, but even he has to admit that Rin's technique exceeds his expectations. Ed, Arya, and Saintess quickly forget the tension from the battle. Gomamiso receives a small plate of her own and becomes so focused after tasting the sweet fat that she almost forgets to blink. Arya previously insisted that everyone should remain silent while enjoying delicious food, yet she ends up with sauce on her cheek. Ed gently wipes it away, causing her to blush. That small moment is enough to show Rin that the meal has returned everyone to their familiar rhythm. Arya explains that people should not talk while eating something delicious because they need to concentrate fully on the flavor. There is also the practical danger that if someone becomes distracted, the person sitting beside them may steal their food. Despite making that rule herself, Arya is the first to break it. She embraces Rin and says that she loves both her and everything she cooks. Rin replies that she is the luckiest person among them. She was summoned into another world and abandoned in a forest like an unwanted object. But now she has companions who genuinely worry about her. Mochan as a place to return to, and Gomamiso constantly beside her. Vil, Ed, and Sinyan all smile at those words. No one regards Rin as temporary transportation any longer. She has become the person who ensures that everyone can eat, rest, and continue moving forward after each dangerous encounter. After resting, Vil destroys the manosphere, protected by the mechanical creatures. Distorted patches immediately appear across the sky and grass, proving that the concentrated mana points are sustaining the illusion. Vil explains that only one final point remains on the entire floor. Arya determines its direction and estimates that they will need approximately 1 hour to reach it, assuming they do not continue being redirected. The floor also contains sophisticated forced teleportation traps capable of moving victims to another location so subtly that they may not notice immediately. Ed points out that none of the monsters encountered so far has been particularly powerful, but Vil still orders everyone to continue searching for enemies and monitoring magical energy while moving. The strength of the monsters represents only one part of the danger. The distorted space and concealed mechanisms make the dungeon far more difficult to evaluate. Rin briefly feels guilty about constantly being protected by the experienced fighters around her. Rather than forcing herself into combat, however, she remembers that her responsibility is to collect ingredients, maintain their mobile base, and transform the party's loot into food that allows everyone to continue. 2 goblin warriors and a goblin mage appear before the final mana point. Rin takes Gomamiso and retreats into Mochan. The 2 warriors raise their shields to protect the mage behind them. Vil breaks through the formation with powerful frontal strikes, while Ed uses magic to knock one defender out of position. Arya launches her threads and restrains the goblin mage before it can complete its spell, while Sinan maintains his support magic. Within moments, the entire defensive group is defeated without anyone receiving an injury. Vil approaches the final sphere and destroys it with his sword. The entire grassland and blue sky immediately dissolve as though an artificial backdrop has been pulled away. The party and Mochan find themselves standing inside an enormous but nearly empty cavern. Only now can they confirm that the meadow was a materialized illusion, covering the true appearance of the second floor. Destroying the concentrated mana points has freed them from the spatial loop. At the far end of the cavern, a stone staircase descends farther into darkness. Ed asks whether the dungeon might still qualify as a low-danger area since none of its monsters has displayed strength matching its appearance. No one is willing to agree yet. Gomamiso is the first to notice a cold current rising from the staircase. Vil orders everyone to move slowly and maintain their formation. The moment they pass through the dark stairway, the group is surrounded by white snow. An enormous frozen field stretches toward the horizon. The trees are bare, freezing wind continuously crosses the landscape, and the snowfall is thick enough to reduce visibility. After moving from a stone cavern to a green meadow and then into a frozen wilderness, Rin no longer dares to predict the dungeon's structure using ordinary logic. Gomamiso's thick fur keeps her warm, but Arya is affected more severely than anyone else. After walking only a short distance, Arya's face becomes pale. Her body begins trembling, and she collapses into the snow. The party immediately suspends the investigation and carries her into Mochan. Ed anxiously checks on his wife while Rin calmly wraps her in blankets and moves her to the warmest section of the vehicle. Rin holds Arya's freezing hands and massages each finger to restore circulation. Arya says that Rin's hands feel so warm that simply holding them makes her feel safe. Outside the window, snow continues covering the landscape. Ed explains that his wife has always suffered from cold hands and feet, but she has never weakened this quickly. Rin suspects that the physiology of the spiderfolk may make Arya especially vulnerable to low temperatures. The snowfall shows no sign of stopping. Blankets and massage alone will not be enough to keep Arya active for long. Rin asks everyone to give her some time. Upon entering the frozen floor, she managed to gather several black mugwort plants. Their leaves are covered in fine fibers that can be processed into moxa wool. In Rin's original world, it was used in moxibustion to warm the body. Sinan knows many medicinal plants used by the elves, but even he has never encountered this particular method. The refining process is far more difficult than Rin's explanation makes it sound, and she cannot complete it quickly alone. The entire party therefore contributes. Ed uses alchemy to break the leaves into smaller pieces. Vil helps pass the material through the filtering tools, and Sinan uses magic to remove residue and impurities, while Rin directs every stage. After considerable effort, the large pile of leaves produces only a fist-sized amount of moxa wool. The yield is extremely low, but it is still enough to create a warming pouch. Rin mixes the refined mugwort with coarse salt and orange peel, seals everything inside a cloth bag, and warms it inside Mochan's microwave. She then adds another thick layer of fabric to prevent the heat from burning Arya. The pouch is placed against the areas that need warmth most. Gentle heat and a soothing fragrance soon spread through the vehicle. The tension gradually leaves Arya's face, and she confirms that the pouch feels both warm and comfortable. The moment Ed sees his wife recovering, he rushes forward and embraces her so tightly that Arya has to tell him to calm down. Before continuing, Rin prepares hot caramel milk for the entire party. The warmth of the drink helps everyone resist the cold from within. Arya recovers enough to stand and return to the formation. The obstacle that forced the party to stop was overcome not through swordsmanship or destructive magic, but through Rin's knowledge combined with Ed's alchemy, Sinan's elven magic, and Mochan's equipment. Once again, the skill once dismissed as useless allows the entire party to continue its mission. Rin does not need to carry a sword to prove her value. Her ability to observe, gather resources, and turn ordinary knowledge into practical solutions fills a role that combat strength can never replace. Outside, the snow has grown deeper, and the landscape has become almost completely white. Vil orders everyone to remain close so no one becomes separated from the formation. A gigantic white boar suddenly charges through the snow. Unfortunately for the creature, it is defeated so quickly that it barely has time to appear before leaving a bundle of loot behind on the ground. The party stops and looks ahead. Through the blizzard, an enormous stone structure gradually becomes visible. Tall columns covered in ice surround a wide staircase leading toward a pitch-black entrance. Parts of the building have collapsed, but its scale still makes everyone standing beneath it feel insignificant. Vil can only guess that it resembles a temple. No one knows what the structure truly is, but the oppressive atmosphere surrounding it makes both Rin and Arya deeply uncomfortable. Vil does not immediately climb the stairs. He studies every step and examines the entrance before ordering everyone to remain alert. Sinyon and Ed prepare to provide support, while Arya monitors the magical energy around the structure. Rin holds Gomamiso in the center of the formation. Even the normally energetic spirit beast becomes completely silent and stares into the darkness beyond the doorway. What began as an investigation of strangely weakened monsters has led the gluttonous banquet to the most suspicious location in the dungeon. Before anyone can cross the entrance, the mystery hidden behind the frozen pillars becomes the next threat waiting for them.